Back with me, three attorneys, Misty Marris, Jesse Weber, and Brian Meyer. Jesse, all right, so it's a little confusing how much time she's actually going to have to serve.
Yeah, so let's be clear, the judge didn't set the actual time, right? It's called indeterminate sentencing. It's really up to the Board of Pardons and Parole to ultimately determine how long she gets. My understanding is it's between 4 and 30 years. You can't go past 30 years. There's a cap there. So now the question is, when could she be up for possible parole? I've spoke to a Utah lawyer about this. They say, look at an 18-month mark. Now, I don't think she's getting out by 18 months, considering the gravity of this. It seems to me she may, Frankie may possibly get out by the 4-year mark. In terms of Jodi Hildebrand, not a chance, because what did we learn during sentencing? The prosecutor has all of these phone calls where she's apparently blaming the children for what happened, says that the media and the court process is full of lies. So if you want to talk about blame in this case, it seems she's going to get more prison time.
Well, but Brian, she's not accepting responsibility fully either. I mean, she's pointing the finger at everybody, saying, oh, you know, this person told me that, and I was living under this delusion. I mean, how does that help her?
A lot more than it does for Jodi. Let's start there. I think it's going to be multiple snapshots. So we get one snapshot of the sentencing, and as Jesse articulated, the Board of Pardon and Paroles will then look at multiple snapshots 6 months from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now, to see how that remorse kind of moves, and also ultimately to see whether or not she's going to be a danger to society or herself if she's released. So if we take those different snapshots throughout that time, that's what they're going to really see. So does she change her tune a little bit more in a year? And it could be helpful.
I'm amazed that almost that they're accepting this plea. I mean, listen, this is, again, number one. This is Ruby Frankie, again, blaming other people.
For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked, as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me.
I mean, again, she keeps talking about the other people who were leading her here.
Right, and she's saying, we know Hildebrand manipulated her. That's been her narrative.
But she also talked about her husband, you know, husbands who don't, you know, all these different things that she claimed she was being told, right, and believed. That's not saying, I did this and I accept responsibility for what I did. This is saying, I did this,
disagree with that.
I did this, and other people are to blame.
I think that, I got to tell you, I've seen a number of statements before from defendants. That felt one of the more genuine ones. I mean, she really said, I was led down such a bad path. I wish I listened to my friends. Kevin, I'm so sorry. She apologized to her children. Believe it or not, I mean, she really said, I was led down a path that I committed these crimes. I deserved prison time over it. And I think that's going to weigh heavily in her favor, especially if you think about who the bigger risk is. Jodi Hildebrand is the one who had the risk.
I get Jodi Hildebrand's a bigger risk, right?
But,
keep it. Jodi Hildebrand's a bigger risk. Okay, that's fine. She's a bigger risk. But the question becomes, what about Ruby Frankie? Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I think that, to me, it didn't land. I didn't see contrition there. I saw a lot of blame game. But I do think she's standing there with her lawyer's prepping her, that part of this relates to the intermediate sentencing issue, because there is going to be a review of what her sentence is going to be, and she's sticking with that narrative of, I was manipulated by others, and now I'm seeing the light. Because remember what they're going to look at. They're going to look at your threat to society, the nature and gravity of the offense. Did you show contrition? So I think it's bigger than just her statement.
She thanked the arresting officers. She thanked the officers that recovered her children. She thanked the medical personnel. I've never heard that before. She says, once the cuffs were put on me, I realized what I did. Now, you can believe that or not, but I'm like, that's something.
Here's Jodi Hildebrand, the one everyone wants to put all the blame on. This is her statement in court. This is number 2.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them.
Jesse, who's she pointing the finger at? I mean, who led her down this path?
I don't believe anything she's saying. I'm sorry. Based on particularly what we heard from the prosecutor, she is doing what she had to do because she knew Ruby Frankie was going to testify against her. The evidence against her was so bad, potentially having these 2 young children testify against her. She's saying whatever she needs to say to try to get some sympathy. I'm sorry. I don't believe anything she does.
They both are. They're both taking pleas.
I believe Ruby won.
If they had went to trial, there is always a punishment with going to trial as opposed to taking a plea, especially when you have very susceptible victims, when you have the elderly, the disabled, and young children, you put them on the stand and you found guilty, a judge is going to add 5, 10, maybe even more years. So they're both saying what's in their best interest. I just think, to your point, Ruby did a little bit better than Jodi Hildebrand, especially because Jodi Hildebrand didn't participate in the sentencing in the way that she talked to probation officers and gave a statement. Instead, you get these jail calls of saying the children are the perpetrators and I'm the victim.
Yeah. All right, everyone's going to stick around.